Now it's time to do our regular YouTube segment that we chop out of the Patreon show. If you want to go back and listen to the full show, go on over, sign up to a 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. We've just talked about all the performances of players in the VFL game against North Melbourne. We talked about George Stevens. We talked about Toby Conway, Patrick Rechko, Jed Buse, Jesse Mellor, who was on debut. Paul told me to make sure I mentioned Jesse Mellor because he did a great video of him, a great draft video of Jesse Mellor. We talked about him. We talked about Ted Closey. We talked about all of them, all the AFL listed cats that played in the VFL on the weekend against the Roos. So if you want that, go on over, start a 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. But what I've decided to chop out here on YouTube for you is a look at how I would currently rank Geelong's AFL listed players who are toiling in the VFL. And the way I've ranked them is essentially readiness to come in and do a job, say like next week, if required. And that takes into account their current form, their current fitness, their experience, previous experience, and a little bit of forecasting about what they can achieve if they reach their potential, if they came out and played up to their potential. So let's have a look at my list. And I've ranked it into tier systems. Okay. So basically, we start with tier 1. And tier 1, Jed Buse. Jed Buse is playing great footy in the VFL on the weekend. He had 20 odd touches, again, 23 touches, 16 by foot, 7 by hand, 3 marks, 7 intercept possessions. Jed Buse, he's ready to come in and play a role if required. Would we make our team necessarily better every week if we just swap Jed Buse in right now? I'm not sure that that's the case, but what I am saying is if someone goes down, if we need a specific matchup for a player, if someone drops form over the last month of the season, is Jed Buse ready to come in and play? Yes. In fact, I think he's the most AFL ready player to come in and play. And a big part of that is that he's been there and done it. He's a premiership winning backman. The second player in tier 1 for me is Toby Conway. Toby Conway, he's played a couple of games back in the VFL. I know everyone's concerned about his health. Yes. We can all make YouTube videos about can he stay healthy. And really, the only people who know whether Toby Conway can stay healthy is him, the coaching staff, and the medical staff. So what we can look at is he out there playing? What minutes is he playing? What sort of footy is he playing? Well, we'll start there. Is he out playing? Yes, he's played in back-to-back weeks. How many minutes is he playing? Well, on the weekend, he played all 4 quarters. So brought back into the side 2 weeks ago against Collingwood. They don't bring him in the first quarter, but he plays quarters 2, 3, and 4. On the weekend, he plays quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4. What sort of footy is he playing? Well, how would I put it? Fucking brilliant football is what I would say he's playing. Toby Conway in this game has 18 disposals, 4 by foot, 14 by hand, 4 marks, 1 tackle, 8 clearances to go with 24 hitouts. Now, he doesn't lead the game for hitouts. And I don't have the hitouts to advantage stat on the AFL app, but I watched the game, and I would say when Toby Conway wins a hitout, more often than not, it's going to his team. His body work, his tap work, his ruck craft in general. I have said it before, and I will say it again. I think that since Brad Otten's left this team, left this club, I think Toby Conway is right up there with your Shane Mumford types as the most talented pure ruckman we've had on our list. I think Reece Stanley is currently playing the best footy he's played at the Cats. And in addition, I would say that Toby Conway is our most talented pure ruckman on the list. His tap work is beautiful. His body work is beautiful. I've had people say there's questions about his mobility, his ability to move around. If you're part of the Hoops Crew Discord, I chopped out a couple of videos of him winning clearances and running away from direct opponents. Mobility is not an issue for Toby Conway. He's as equally mobile as a player like Reece Stanley. I don't understand the concern. If you haven't watched him play. Now, Can a player turn a bad corner and eventually become less mobile? Could he become slower because of injuries? Maybe, but I don't see that right now. What I see is an extremely, within context, he's a fucking ruckman. He's not as mobile as a wingman. He's not as mobile as a small forward. But if you look at rucks and prototypical ruckman, he's a beautiful tall build. He's strong bodied. Oh yeah, and he's also agile. If the ball hits the deck, he can win it. If the ball bounces, he can take possession and turn and spin his way out of trouble against opposition players. He can run and gallop. Is, is he fast compared to every other position in the AFL? No. Is he fast compared to ruckman? Yes. Who are the faster ruckmen? Maybe like Mark Blixarves, Nick Natanui. Absolute freaks. So Toby Conway's playing awesome footy, and I think if he stays healthy, and I will give you that, if he stays healthy, that's been the big question. But that to me is the only thing that stands between Toby Conway and becoming one of the 5 or 6 best rucks in the competition. So like he can come in. If we asked him to come in this week against Port Adelaide, I would feel pretty good about his potential to do the job. So I've got Buse and Conway, and I've got George Stevens rounding out my tier 1. Stevens, I think, we'll all look to the game where he didn't do it. But why not also look at the game where he did do it against Richmond? And everyone will say, oh, but it was against the Tigers. Who gives a shit? Jai Clark, Ted Closey, Mitch Nevitt, all of these guys, none of them have registered a game like what George Stevens registered against Richmond. So they've all had the opportunity. None of them have put their best foot forward like George Stevens did. If we had to bring George Stevens in for a game, and again, I'm not saying these guys have to come in and need to come in. I'm saying this is my ranking based on if we needed to bring them in, how would I feel about them? I think George Stevens is about the player I'd be third most confident about coming in and doing a job. He was really good on the weekend. He had 30 disposals, 12 clearances, 6 tackles. He was excellent again on the weekend. He's strong-bodied and he's smart. And so the beauty of that is not only is he strong-bodied, he's smart enough to know where to put his body to advantage himself at the contest. So George Stevens there rounds out tier 1. Tier 2, Jai Clark. If you haven't watched Jai Clark recently, you should do yourself a favor because he is a player who is transforming what he does in front of our eyes. He came to the club, he's a contested footballer. He's going to win a lot of hard footy, but he doesn't do a lot else. Jai Clark's added dash and speed to his game this season. He's averaging 27 touches per game at the VFL level, and that's important because he's learned to pick the ball up, not just in contested scenarios, but uncontested scenarios. So 25 touches on the weekend for Jai Clark, 12 by foot, 13 by hand, 2 marks, 7 tackles, 2 clearances, 2 goals. One was an absolute ripper, burning through the paint of 50, sinking the slipper, and kicking the goal. Jai Clark, I would feel pretty good if we could bring him in and try and use him in the same way that we are in the VFL. If we didn't expect him to go on ball necessarily all the time, but if we could manufacture scenarios where he can get involved to use his pace and his speed. He had 8 intercept possessions on the weekend to lead the team. They've asked him to do a bit more defensively behind the ball. And in general, he's done it really well. Now, again, this is tier 2. Do I want them to bring Jai Clark in next week? Not necessarily, but if he had to, in the right role, I could see him doing something. Next up, Ollie Henry. 2 goals on the weekend. He made 3 tackles inside 50. He marked the ball pretty well. And I'll just add on Jai Clark, by the way. The disposal efficiency still worries me. The disposal efficiency is still too low. He is still far too agricultural by foot. And I don't know that he's got the physicality yet in terms of his size to play on ball predominantly at AFL level. So that's why he's in tier 2. There's still question marks. There's still question marks about Ollie Henry too. I thought it was a B+ kind of game from Ollie Henry on the weekend. I like that he kicked his 2 goals. I like that he gave 2 goals off. I like that he laid tackles inside 50. At times you can see he's still really trying to do too much at times. He looks best when he just plays within himself and does the things that he's good at. When he runs and jumps at the footy, when he tries to pressure inside 50. when he's not trying overly hard to win back his spot and trying to play above himself. If Jack Martin goes down injured, am I happy for Ollie Henry to be the player that slots back in? Yes. I think of our VFL list, I know some people will point to Jay Polkinghorne. I think it's too much too soon. If Jack Martin goes down, pop Ollie Henry back in the side. Ted Closey, for me, also in tier 2. He's fallen down my pecking order a little bit this year. I'm not saying he's playing bad VFL footy. He's not. He had 28 touches and a goal to go with, where was he? 3 tackles, 5 clearances on the weekend. The disposal efficiency is still really low, though. And we can sort of point to the fact that he won 12 contested possessions, but he had 15 uncontested as well. And as Tom Atkins is demonstrating at the AFL level, you can win contested footy and still use it well. Tom Atkins is consistently in that 65 to 75% disposal efficiency, despite winning like 2/3 of his touches contested. Ted Closey went at 53% on the weekend. So the ball use for a lot of Geelong's young midfielders in the VFL does need to improve. And I think that's what will keep them sort of on the fringe of the team and fighting for their list spot, is stuff like that. So look, Closey, he's still in tier 2. I like him best if he comes into the AFL as a pressure forward. For us at the moment, I don't think he's got the tank and the ball use to play predominant midfield minutes. He does have a knack for kicking goals, Ted Closey. Not as many this season, but he puts himself in good positions, and I like his pressure inside forward 50. So that's a role I would like, him to play if he was required to at AFL level. Not so much, hey, let's bring him in as an on-baller. Can we bring him in and use him as a pressure forward? All right, we'll burn through a few of these. Patrick Rechko, if you haven't watched him, is doing exceptional stuff out on the wing in the VFL. He's currently averaging this season, where are we? As I look in my spreadsheet, 20 disposals per game. He's kicked 13 goals in 16 matches. He's laying basically 2 tackles per game. Patrick Rechko is a really nice, strong body. He's a long kick of the footy. He runs hard, I would say, both ways. That's definitely improved. I had some issues with his defensive efforts in the first half of the season. I think we've seen improvements there. As I said, he kicks goals. Again, probably a player that needs to work on the disposal efficiency a little bit. I think he gets sucked into kicking long when maybe he should just use the ball short. He tries to do it all in one kick. But it's been a really solid season for Patrick Rechko. His issue, of course, is there are so many good players for Geelong in those sort of wing spots ahead of him. The most obvious one being Ollie Dempsey. But, if we have a player go down and we bring in Patrick Rechko, I'd be pretty confident to give him a look. Tier 3. This is where we start getting into players, I think, who really do have some ups and downs. Mitch Nevitt, for me, injury has really plagued him this season. Started the year really in AFL contention, really slipped out of it after coming back from his injury. Had a really rough game on the weekend. 16% disposal efficiency on 12 touches. Did look like he was carrying a knock in the game. I would be less confident about whether Mitch Nevitt could have an impact for us if he had to come in next week. So, yes, that's why he's down in tier 3. Ollie Wiltshire, I don't know that, he's a great goal sneak. I'm not sure that he's offering enough pressure. And this is the thing. If you're going to come in and play as a small forward for the Cats, for this Cats team, he's laid 21 tackles in 11 games. So not even quite 2 tackles per game, Ollie Wiltshire. I think the pressure and defensive effort would have to lift for him, for me to feel really confident about him coming in. Jay Polkinghorne has done really well this season, I think, for a debutant sort of key forward. 26 goals, 13 in 15 matches. Probably struggles to stay involved in the game. This is what I would say. He's only getting 8.5 touches per game. Obviously, we don't want him to have 15 touches, but I'd like to see him have like 11 touches per game, an extra 3 times a game where he's having the footy either to bring a teammate into it or kick a goal himself. I've liked his marking. He's averaging about 3 and a bit marks per game. He's averaging, about 2.5 tackles per game. I've liked his tackling. So like his tackling, like his marking. I've enjoyed his goal kicking. It's about staying involved, and I think a big part of that is working on his one-on-one forward craft. I think there's a lot of times where he's probably being outpointed by his opponent, out wrestled by his opponent. I think 2026 he'll find a way to move past that and create more opportunities for himself. Tier 4 is your really rough diamonds. They are led for me by Xavier Ivicic. Ivicic, for me, I didn't really know what he brought when we first saw him this season. As the season's gone on, I get it. I think he's been drafted to fill in that sort of an archetype of player in the 2025 Cats. Brian Myers, Sean Manor, Brad Close kind of fits in this category, but they're basically sort of smaller players who can win contested ball if required, but you're sort of going to hover them around the outside of stoppages. They're going to be involved a lot in the front half of the ground. They can pressure, they can create, they can kick goals themselves. So those sort of smaller, half forward, sometimes getting a few minutes on ball type of players. I think mainly, let's leave Brad Close out of it. It's more Brian and Sean Manor for me. Ivicic, I think, is that kind of player that they're trying to develop. And he had a really nice game on the weekend. He's played his best footy in the second half of this season, which I think is great. A great sign for a developing youngster. Ivicic had 2 goals, 15 touches. I think he had maybe 3 clearances. No, just the 1 clearance and 4 tackles. So I really liked Xavier Ivicic's game, but very, very rough still. I wouldn't be bringing him in. Mattify Forbes, super talented. One of the easiest 70-meter kicks I've seen off his left foot. They've tried him down back. They've tried him up forward. He probably looks most comfortable up forward because I think that's where he's previously played. But I like the idea of him as a backman. Sort of a medium, tall defender, powerful body, and a real ability to help you rebound with a long, raking pinpoint kick. Still needs to probably work on the tank a bit. And I think he's still learning his craft as a defensive player. And I think he's behind a number of other players in those sort of medium, tall forward category. Mitch Edwards, very raw, but very talented, obviously. As a ruckman, has worked back from some health issues like Toby Conway. I can imagine down, in the future, developing into sort of really mobile big man. He has maybe borderline Mark Blixarv's kind of stuff, but I think Connor O'Sullivan is more that. I know Connor O'Sullivan is playing key back at the moment, but it's really easy to see Connor O'Sullivan with his mobility and general around the ground skills developing into a bit of a Swiss Army knife for the Cats, should they want to. But yeah, Edwards, Joe Pike, Lennox Hoffman, and Killian Burke, all players in Tier 4 who are very raw. They are just starting out their journey. There's no guarantee that all of these Tier 4 players will necessarily be on Geelong's list next year. It's not often that we get one and done players, but sometimes you do. So yeah, that's how I would rank it at the moment in terms of my confidence in players to come in and do a job if asked, out of the players who are playing on the VFL and have played a lot of VFL this season. All right, if you like that, if you want to get the rest of the show, I've done a full hour show of the VFL this week. So if you want that, go on over, sign up for a 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. Love to see you over there.